Hello everyone, I'm Joe Mitchell. Welcome to the second annual North Country Youth Summit. And thank you for coming tonight. As you all sit here tonight, please do not be afraid to look beside you and amplify the positive acts that you see, because together we can achieve greatness that cannot be done alone. I would now like to call up Miss Levile, Principal of North Country Charter Academy. I hope everyone has a spectacular night.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second annual Youth Summit. This event began as a project by a group of North Country Charter Academy students last year, and wow, it has grown and has become a regional event now. Thank you all so much for coming. We're excited about this evening's event. We have lots of awesome things going on. I have to thank some very special people and organizations, because without their contributions, we would not be able to host this event this evening. It means so much to us that we have spirited people and organizations like these who truly care about youth, their well-being, and their acknowledgement that youth voices matter. Youth voices are critical in solving problems. We need to hear from our youth in addressing the substance misuse crisis that we continue to face daily. I'd like to thank the financial sponsors, North Country Health Consortium, New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services, Bureau of Drug and Alcohol, Eric Spofford, founder of the Granite State Recovery Centers, Sean Mahoney, Fidelity Charitable, Peter Thompson, state sponsor, Janet Stevens, J.L. Stevens and Associates, New Hampshire Mental Health Practices Boards, Eric Becker, Black Crow Project, Mark Olivier, manager, Shaw's Supermarket. And I'd also like to thank other supporters, Troy Murner, Lancaster Lions Club, Phil Riviere, Disc Jockey, Chad Fillion, Littleton Area Television, and also Plume Media, Channel 2. You know, this took a lot of work to put this event together, and I'd like to also thank the people behind the scenes who worked very hard and put an enormous amount of time into making sure that this event is a hit. Kim Spalding, North Country Charter Academy Event Manager, Greg Williams, North Country Health Consortium Substance Misuse Prevention Coordinator, Joey Mitchell, North Country Charter Academy Event Coordinator, and also Lead Master of Ceremonies. And all of the North Country Student Assistant Program Coordinators. In addition, thank you North Country Charter Academy student Brandon White and alumni student Hannah Potter. You all have fun tonight. Thank you. Joey, please return to the podium.
I would now like to introduce our student MCs for the night. Colby from Groveton, and Belle from Davenport. Would Colby please come up to introduce our first performer?
Thank you, Joey. All right. Please welcome Deb Narrow to the stage, a story of a New Hampshire teen in recovery of the nation's drug problems. Deb Narrow's story is a dramatic retelling of a New Hampshire teen real life slide down the slippery slope of drug use and heroin addiction and the difficulty journey to the recovery. I'd like to introduce Deb Narrow's executive direction of Katie to introduce the program. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Colby. It's great. It's great to see so many of you out tonight. It's a beautiful night, so that you're on the inside. That's a great tribute to all of you. I'd like to also thank North Country Charter Academy for hosting tonight's event, and all of you for being here. I'm sure you're all aware about the addiction crisis that New Hampshire and across the country is experiencing. Last year, we lost nearly 500 lives to overdose deaths. It's very tragic, and if I had to guess, there's many people in this room that have close family members and friends that they've lost. And so we need to do everything that we can to prevent addiction and save lives. And that's precisely the mission of Katie and Tiger. We joined together 4 years ago and developed Alex's story. And as Colby just said, this is a real-life account of Alex Berry and his experience with addiction, treatment, and recovery. Unfortunately, Alex can't be here this evening. He has a family member that had surgery today. So we have to change it up a little bit, but no worries. We have Tegan Kelly. She is a professional actress from New York City, and we have this program designed where Tegan tells Alex's story, and then Alex joins us for a live Q&A. Tonight he won't be able to do that, but I am one of the program developers along with Trish Lindberg from the Tiger program, and we'll step in and do the Q&A. So we have it designed that way because when you're in recovery, it's very difficult to keep recounting your story over and over again. And Tegan does an amazing job, and please welcome her to the stage right now.
Hi guys, I'm Alex, and I'm a recovering addict. I'm here today because I sat in a high school auditorium not too many years ago thinking that could never happen to me. But I'm not that different from any of you, and I'm here to tell you that it can happen. I'm here to share my story with you. Before I started using, I had a lot of advantages in life. I grew up in southern New Hampshire. I was, involved in sports, scouts, stuff like that. Had a really incredible family. Life was pretty good. There were no actual problems that I had. Then I got into middle school, and that's kind of where things started changing for me. When I was young, I hung out with all different sorts of people, whether it be the jocks or the nerds or what have you. When I got into middle school, I started hanging out with these kids from up the street. Friends. Those friends were the ones who introduced me to marijuana for the first time. I was at this kid's house, and he was like, "You want to try?" And I said, "Sure." And I started smoking a couple times a month, just once or twice a month, not a lot. And just when I was hanging out with these friends, so it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a problem. But then when I got into the 8th grade, I was smoking every single day after school. I was introduced to different things. Prescription benzos like Xanax, Valium, stuff like that. After a while, I was introduced to alcohol, and I loved drinking. I liked it a lot. I would steal beers from my parents or get friends who were 21 to buy me some. It kind of just got to the point where whatever I could do to get messed up, I would do. Whether it was smoking, drinking, or taking pills. My freshman year of high school is where my parents found out about my addiction. I had smoked before school, went to school, and shocker, got suspended for being under the influence in school. So my parents wanted to help me and bring me to some counselor, psychologist of some sort, and I hated the guy. I couldn't stand him. I thought that I knew everything, and I didn't want to listen to this guy. I was just smoking weed. It's not a big deal. So I stopped seeing him, and I continued smoking. But then slowly it started to get worse. When I was 16, I got extremely drunk, and I blacked out, and I was basically left for dead on the side of the road. Most 16-year-olds, when that happened, would stop using or get help, but I didn't care. I know, okay, I can drink that much and I'll black out, so if I don't drink that much, everything will be okay. I thought that I was under control. At this time, I was doing everything. You know, smoking, drinking, taking pills, and it wasn't a big deal. You know, because it's not like I was snorting cocaine or shooting up heroin. I was just doing what the other teenagers did. Well, I was with a friend who introduced me to Percocet for the first time. The same friend who got me into weed. You know, he had 2 older brothers who were always trying to get us to smoke with them. Why don't you come try this, try that? I had known that they were using the pills, and it looked like they were having a great time. You know, and I was like, well, I want to have a great time. You know, I want to have fun, so I should, sure. And I tried it, and I can't explain the feeling that it gave me. It made me feel kind of like I was invincible. You know, like I was on top of the world. But little did I know that that pill was actually going to destroy my life. Like I said, at this time I was doing everything, and I didn't think it was a big deal. You know, I thought that I was in control. I didn't have a problem. Well, I was with a friend, a different one, and he showed me this small blue pill. It's called Perk 30s. And I hit it off with that. That little blue pill literally controlled my life from 16 to 17 years old, and I was doing anything that I could to get it. I started stealing from my family, stealing from my friends. I was taking anything that wasn't bolted to the ground, and I was selling it. All the money that I made at my first job, just going into drug dealers' pockets, but I didn't have a problem. You know, I thought that that was control. Well, it was what the other teenagers were doing. And like a cliche teenager, I got in a fight. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I didn't get in a fight, but I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I got hit in the face, and I freaked out. So I went to the school resource officer, and I told him that I got hit in the face, and then I told him that I had a drug problem and I needed help. Why I told him that, I don't know. But they took me from school, and they brought me to the hospital, where I got blood tested. The thing was that the only thing in my system at that time was weed. You know, there were no other drugs in my bloodstream at that moment, so that was basically the end of that. I mean, I don't know if my parents just brushed it under the rug, or they thought that I was being sincere when I said I didn't want to use anymore. Obviously, I wasn't being sincere. I just freaked out because I got hit in the face. So I continued using, and it got significantly worse. The same friend who introduced me to the Perk 30s introduced me to heroin. I was at this kid's house, and he had it out on some tin foil, and I was like, you know, what's that? Oh, it's heroin, he said. Do you want to try? And I said, sure. And I tried it, and then it kind of just grew out of control. You know, it was kind of like a snowball. You know, once you start, you can't stop, and then all of a sudden you're rolling down this hill, and you start going faster and faster until there's absolutely nothing that you can do to stop it. You know, and I kept telling myself, I can just try this drug once. You know, I'm not going to get addicted to it. That doesn't actually happen. You know, I'm not going to get addicted to it because I'm not that kind of a person. But then I was using heroin every single day, still stealing from anybody that I could, my sister, my little brother, anyone that I could get money from. I was just taking it, you know, and I didn't think that I had a problem. This is the summer of 2013, and I was using heroin every single day. I was just snorting it and smoking it, and all of a sudden it wasn't enough. You know, I started having these dreams about shooting up. And then one day, I was like, you know what, the hell with it. I'm going to try it. I'm going to IV this because everyone else is doing it, and they say that it is so much better. And I did. And there is no going back after that. I tried to tell myself that I didn't have a conscience. You know, it doesn't matter if this is your family's money because you're going to get messed up. I mean, you'll feel great. You'll forget all about it. You know, it doesn't matter if they need that money for food because you're going to get messed up, and that's what matters. And I didn't think that that was a problem. You know, I thought that that was control. After that, October of 2013, my friend told me via text that he stole his stepdad's iPad and he sold it for heroin. And I was ticked at him because he wouldn't sell me dope that morning, so I thought the best revenge would be to send the text that he sent me to his mom. But then his mom showed it to the police, and the police showed up at our school. So now I was forced to tell my parents, well, I was forced to tell my mom. My dad found out later, a few days later on his 26th wedding anniversary. Happy anniversary. But anyways, now my parents knew that I really had a problem with opiates, and it was to the point where their child was shooting up heroin. But the thing was that they had no idea. You know, they were completely clueless. So I went to a counselor, a different one, and I put on this facade, you know, that I was going to be okay. I just needed the support of my family and friends. I could just smoke weed. I wouldn't take pills or shoot up heroin, and everything would be okay. You know, I put on this charade that I was going to be fine. But in reality, I was thinking this counselor guy has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. You know, I'm still using, and he has no idea. I'm fooling this guy. He's an idiot, and it's so easy. Flash forward to January 7th of 2014. It was the last day that I used heroin. I was sitting in my room, and I don't know what came over me. You know, I just started thinking, you know what, you have nothing good going on in your life. You've lost countless friends. You've ruined your relationship with your family. You know, you're a nobody. You have absolutely nothing going on in your life, and you could die if you continue like this. Because people are dying. Kids are dying. So I told my sister and my older brother that I was still using. I gave my dad all of my paraphernalia. And 6 days later, on my 18th birthday, I was admitted to my first rehab. It was a detox center in Brockton, Mass. It's known as the Castle. I spent 2 weeks there, and they changed my life. Because they showed me that I don't need to put some substance in my body in order to enjoy myself, you know, which was the biggest thing for me. Yeah, at this point, I'd been using for 5 years. Since I was 13 years old, I didn't know how to go on a walk and enjoy it, or even just watch TV and enjoy it without being messed up. You know, I didn't know how to do anything and actually enjoy myself without the use of drugs, and these 2 weeks in this detox center showed me that that's not how it needs to be. After my 2 weeks there, I was transferred to the the Phoenix House, in Dublin, New Hampshire. And at first I was really hesitant to go. You know, I kept telling myself, I don't need to go to some month-long rehab where they're just going to tell me the same crap that they told me at the castle. You know, I know that I'm going to be sober, so why do I need to go to this place for it? But what I realized is that that's the same thinking that I was using when I was in active addiction. You know, that's the same thinking that I was using when I was using. And I knew that I had to change that. You know, I knew that I had to do something different, do something that was going to make me uncomfortable in order to stay in recovery. So I went to the Phoenix House on January 27th of 2014, and I was there until March 21st of 2014, and I found that I was wrong. I was so wrong. You know, I learned so much there. You know, and the most important thing is that I got clean time. You know, those friends, they could be out of my life for good. There was no one around me who was going to suck me back into using. clean time. I also learned a lot about myself, met a lot of really incredible people, and I actually ended up growing a passion for sobriety. If you're smoking weed, it's a warning sign. That is a problem. Weed is a gateway drug, just in a couple of ways. The first is that it gives you the experience of being high. You might want to chase that high, so you might go elsewhere to find it. The second is that it puts you around other and harder drugs. The same person that you get your weed from, they could probably get you Xanax, Valium, alcohol, maybe heroin, who knows? You know, smoking weed does not mean that you're going to want to do other drugs. But it does put you around other drugs. There are some tools that I wish I had when I was 13 that I have now. The first is the knowledge that drugs are as bad as people say they are. They're not just saying that to scare you. You should be scared. Because like I said, people are... The second is the willpower to say no, even when it's unbearably difficult. And the last is the acceptance of the fact that you don't need to care so much about what other people think. You know, if I didn't care so much when I was 13, I would have been doing whatever else my 13-year-old self would have wanted to do without the use of drugs. There's so much more out there. You know, so much more to the world than drugs. In reality, drugs can land you in one of three places: jails, institutions, or death. None of those are really great options. And anyone can be an addict. This is huge. You could be a big CEO of a company or from a broken home family. It doesn't matter. You know, you could have absolutely everything in life and still be an addict. But there is help. You know, there are people who want to see you recover. I found those people. And look at where I am now, alive, and talking to you. So if you're sitting here thinking, nope, I don't have a problem, no, that can be the addiction talking. You know, every single person who uses drugs says that. Every person who uses drugs says, I don't have a problem. But you know, it's the ones who say that they do have a problem and get the help that they need who go into recovery. And you can go into recovery, but you never fully recover. You know, once you're an addict for life. It's kind of like when a cucumber becomes a pickle. Once it's a pickle, there's no going back to being a cucumber. You are what you are, and the moment that you accept that and get the help you need, the better, because I promise you, it only gets worse. It is an extremely hard fight. It's a battle every single day. Sometimes it's a battle every single minute of the day. But with the right support system and the right recovery system, it is possible to recover, and I promise you that it's worth it. Thank you. So, like Deb Narrow said earlier, normally at this moment, we have Alex come to the stage. And we've been to several schools now, performing since the spring of 2015. So we have collected so many questions from different schools all around New Hampshire and some out of New Hampshire. And we have our Ask It basket, if you will, that we have collected questions in. So normally what we do is we start questions that have been asked before, just to make the students comfortable. In our high school and middle school settings, we normally have index cards that get passed around just so we can monitor the questions a little bit. Today, we won't be doing that. So I do have some questions that I'll start out with that are our most popularly asked questions. And then we're going to leave it to you. So unfortunately, we don't have Alex here for all of the personal questions, but for the most part, we've been doing this for 3 years, so we know a lot of his answers, or if you have general questions about addiction, heroin addiction itself.
Thank you, Trish.
I'm so fine. Yeah, I'll ask you
Start
questions.
with-
Yeah.
Start with one?
Oh yeah, I just actually have a memo.
Oh, you have it memorized? So go ahead.
So the first one we usually ask is, why do you have a female tell your story?
We designed this so that Alex would, as we said earlier, do the Q&A. But it's very important to that everyone understand that addiction can happen to anyone, male, female, young, old. And so it's really to send that message, to especially to youth audiences.
How did your addiction affect your relationship, family, and friends?
I'm in the rebuilding phase right now. What Alex has been telling student audiences across the state is that it damaged many relationships. In fact, his younger brother, Alex was a role model to his younger brother, and his younger brother was so hurt and by this whole experience that to this day their relationship is fractured, and he hasn't been able to repair that, which he regrets deeply.
Is it hard to tell your story, and why do you think it's important to do so?
Alex has always told audiences that it's extremely hard to sit there. When Tegan is telling his story, sometimes he cringes because it's not the person he is. It always was meant to be. He listens to this and he thinks, wow, I did some really bad things and I hurt so many people that I loved. And so it's really very difficult for him to hear the story over and over, but he feels it's so important to tell. He wants to spare others, especially young people, from traveling down that same pathway to addiction. So it helps really solidify his recovery by hearing his story over and over and then connecting with the youth.
Do people treat you differently when they find out that you're a recovering heroin addict?
He has found people to be so supportive, and that's fantastic because we need to overcome the stigma of addiction so that we can encourage more young people and adults to reach out for the treatment that they need. And but initially, people are stunned because when you see Alex, he is truly the boy next door. That's why we did this story, because it really hammers home that if it happened to Alex, it could happen to me.
Is there any information or help that you could have had to help prevent you from starting drugs in the first place?
What Alex will share is that addiction it has been in his family for years. So if he understood the genetic influence of addictions, when you have addiction in your family lines, your chromosomes are changed at a cellular level, so that you're going to be more likely to become addicted than someone that doesn't have the family, predisposition. If he had known that, he thinks that would have been helpful, as well as somebody like him coming really the same age as other students and telling his story, real life impactful stories. He thinks is very worthwhile.
What is it like to use heroin?
Well, as he was saying, he said heroin is like a warm, evil blanket that wraps itself around you. You might temporarily feel, the high, especially initially, but then it becomes so it controls your life, and the cravings and the constant search, for the substance was his undoing. And he said that he's very, very lucky to be alive today. And so he says it was a tragic experience.
And just to piggyback off of that, he describes it as this warm, evil blanket that consumes you, mind, body, and soul, truly, and tends to lull people into a sleep. And some people don't wake up from that sleep. whether that be a deeper path of addiction or death. So he says, luckily he was able to wake up from that sleep, but many do not, and they don't realize that they have a problem because they're so consumed in this blanket.
Well said.
Let's see.
And if anyone has questions, just raise your hand and we're happy, or shout out, and we're happy to answer those as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
My best friend died almost 2 years ago. I grew up with her since I was in fourth grade, and she passed away on her 16th birthday. We found her dead on our floor, and she was like already gray. I've never been anywhere without it. I was a living there, so it's like I was different, but like I convinced me like to remove some of these things. It sucks. Like if I feel like sometimes I could have done something to stop her. Like at the time I was in basement. I still am, but at the time I was in basement. Sometimes I feel like it's my fault because I was always there.
I'm very sorry for your loss, but please don't feel the guilt. And I think that's a natural feeling for family members and close friends. But as Alex has said, until he came to that realization himself that he needed that help. You could help him by, listening and supporting him, but you can't lead somebody in most situations to treatment. So
She died once, and then the next life, me and her overdosed a week apart. I was standing behind bags, so I would and then she died. She was pronounced dead. I was too, and we both went right back to it. Right, I got out of the hospital and I just went right back to it. It's the hardest thing ever.
the relapsing, the reoccurrence is part of the disease of addiction. Are you in recovery now?
I've been clean. June 21st is my 2 years.
I'm so happy for you. Stay there. Get support. That's right. We'd love to talk to you. Lexi. That sounds beautiful. Well, Alexia. Oh, another Alex. Okay, that's great.
We do often
Thank
get
you.
questions about friends and family from students. It's the most popular relation that we have, and Alex does start every answer with the fact that the only thing that you can do is be a support, be their support system, be there for them, be informed, and if it comes to a dangerous situation, the possibility of getting someone of knowledge involved. But like Deb said, until someone is wanting the help, you can't blame yourself because there's nothing more that you could have done, so you shouldn't carry that with you.
That's right. That's good. Thank you, Lexi. The peer pressure is something that's alive and well, and that's why we have to be strong individuals and stand on our own 2 feet. And it's hard because even adults experience peer pressure. Oh, sure. I think you could probably tell me a little bit more about peer pressure than I could tell you. But you're absolutely right, because if others are doing something and they're leaning on you, you might feel more likely to move that way. But what we're trying to do is to communicate to you that this is your life. These are your choices, and you're the one who's in control. You want to be in the driver's seat of your own life and not let somebody else or a substance take over. So stand up to peer pressure. Good job. You know, you're so right, because if you don't know the consequences, or you know the consequences are that you could lose everything that you value by making that choice, it's better to say no to it. So you're good thought process. It's hard to see out there with these lights. Anybody else have any questions or thoughts that you'd like to share? Okay.
Some other questions then that were often asked are, you know, what lengths did Alex go to for his addiction as far as stealing is concerned?
He stole, I believe he stole his mother's wedding ring. And that was something that he actually told at, we were speaking at PSU, and his mother was there, and she broke down crying, and that really was very upsetting to him, and to her to learn that in a public way. And grocery money, as he said, anything that wasn't hammered down was fair game for him. He would steal it, pawn it, sell it, anything. Really, the prime mover was to get the heroin.
Do you just want to do more?
I don't know, how are we doing for time? Couple more questions?
Perfect.
Okay.
Let's see. So did a mental condition such as depression have any toll as to your start of drug use?
Well, I wouldn't call it, he did experience anxiety and pressure of wanting to fit in, and but as far as any mental health issues, depression, things like that, I think it was mainly anxiety, and he did have some moments where he, felt on the outside looking in. So.
Yep. He said that for his entire younger middle school and young high school experience, he wasn't comfortable in his own skin. And he now sees the importance of finding that comfort, the comfort in the things that make you happy, the things that you're good at, thinking about the positives. He talks about a lot, which he, will elaborate on his own life and how all of the positive things in his life now, he finds true happiness in. So, although it's difficult at a young age to always find those things that you're good at and that you love, the importance of those is much higher than most people think. The last question that we usually ask is if Alex could go back in time and tell his younger self any sort of information, what would it be?
And he usually answers this question with that if he had known the pain that he would have caused his family and the loss of relationships, he would not have traveled down that road. And he's very grateful to be here today and not be one of the statistics. I'm tripping over my own tongue. That we have seen in the state. He's lost many friends to overdose deaths, And he's very passionate about telling his story so that he can prevent others from traveling down that same road. So it's really just that, the regret of not knowing, and that's why he wants to inform others.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much.
We do a few giveaways right now. So Greg and Colby.
Is it on? Okay. So we want to thank you all for coming out here tonight. We got some gift card giveaways, and I'm going to have my friend Laura come up here and help me pick out. Give her a round of applause. All right, so get your tickets out. All right. Do I just read the last? Yeah. Okay. So the number is 932. 932. You're lucky. Is that Brandy? Congratulations.
These are like $25 or $15 gift cards. Walmart. Amazon. Subway.
Oh, I'm digging Subway. All right.
We'll be doing these for a while, so.
And the winning number is 834.
3-4.
There we go. Round of applause, everyone. Oh, shoot.
Our next performance. So, we're gonna bring it on. So, bring it on next.
Tonight we're here for some very specific reasons. We are here to gather in the name of prevention and promote the talents in the North Country. We are also here to showcase that there are better things to do than drugs and alcohol. This is a time where we take positive risks, the kind of risks that allow us to step out of our comfort zones and make a difference in our community. Please take a healthy risk tonight and ask a question, meet someone new, or tell your story. It will make all the difference. Now we're going to start off with the youth talent for tonight. Colby? Okay, the first youth talent of the night is Fight Song.
You want that side?
Okay.
Okay, Brian.
Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves and emotion. Like how a single heart can make a heart open. I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. And all those things I didn't say, the wrecking balls inside my brain, I will scream them loud tonight. Can you hear my voice this time? This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. left in me. Losing friends and I'm chasing sleep. Everybody's worried about me. In too deep, say I'm in too deep. Been 2 years, I miss my home, but there's a fire burning in my bones. Still believe, yeah, still believe in all those things I didn't say. The wrecking balls inside my brain, I will scream them loud tonight. Can you hear my voice this time? This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care if nobody else believes. 'Cause I still got a lot of fight left in me. Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion. Like how a single word can make a heart open. I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care if nobody else believes. But I still got a lot of fight left in me. And I still got a lot of fight left in me.
I think she deserves another round of applause. She did a great job singing. Good job. All right. Good job. Mike, this come back.
Awesome job, fight song. At this time, please welcome up Pedestrian Empire.
Tickets out again. And the winning number is 905. 905. There we go. There's our lucky winner. Our next lucky number is 823. Number 823. No? No one? Oh, here's our lucky winner. All right, we're gonna do one more. The lucky number is 936936. Oh, and our winner is Laura. Now we're gonna turn the stage.
So if you're lonely, just know I'm here to wait for you. I'm just a crossing, I'm just a shot away from you. And if you leave here, you leave me holding shining light. I'm just a crossing, I'm just a shot that can die. We're just a typical garage band, basically. It's just the four of us. We're very low tech, very low everything. No merchandise. We do have social media though. Follow us on Facebook. We're mostly cover band, but we do have our own songs. That song we just did was by Franz Ferdinand. It's called Take Me Out. The next song we're going to do is The Middle by Jimmy Eat World. Then we're going to be doing one that we made called Blind. So let's get into it. 1 second, my face has got way too. Oh, 1 second. That's easy. I gotta get a drink. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. All right, ready now. All right.
Oh,
rock band rock. All right, spectacular. Round of applause. And now I'd like to introduce Mr. Greg Williams. Round of applause.
Thank you, Colby. So, while these guys break down, I'll just tell you a little bit about a project we've been working on. This is Lucy Bissonette. Hold on a second. So I think, the point of all these acts are, if you're looking for something to do, these are the things you can do, like martial arts, singing like Michaela, the band. Get into something that keeps you busy. Do something you love, find your passion. That's important, of course. So a while ago, I was at the Charter Academy, and we were talking, and I heard wind of a girl that I wanted to do a podcast. And I heard about this girl who supposedly did podcasts, and then we started talking, and I asked her to send me a little snippet of her work. And what I found was a great voice that, I don't know, it just inspires a lot of people. She's only 16, is that right? 16 years old? I'm speaking for her because she's a little shy. She comes alive behind the mic. So if you want to say anything, let me know. But she, together, I produced it. It was her work. We're going to play a 4-minute snippet of our first podcast. It's gotten around. It's gotten quite a few, it's been listened to quite a few times. But we're going to play a 4-minute snippet. And it's based on bringing awareness to the problem that's in our area, and like you heard today, showing a story of somebody in crisis and how they overcame it a little bit. All right, so Brandon, can you start it? And Lucy, do you have anything to say?
Oh.
Okay, hold on. Brandon, cut it. I hate...
I think this is the best alternative to, drug use. Speak up, yeah.
All right. So it's about 4 minutes long. We're not going to play the whole 20 minutes, but this is Lucy's podcast. Okay, Brandon, now.
I am directing all executive agencies to use every appropriate emergency authority to fight the opioid crisis.
Hi, I'm Lucy. I'm 16 and I live in the small town of Whitefield, New Hampshire. I dare you to find it on a map. You won't. For a teen, there's not much to do up here. Combined with the veil of the White Mountains, it can make one feel pretty isolated. It doesn't help that adults don't seem to understand us and our problems. Despite their desperate efforts to understand and reach youth with lessons, scolding, and posters, we often find ourselves blocking it out. No offense, but we typically just look over those posters and not care. Often the people aren't real, the stories are fabricated and stereotypical, and, well, they're heartless. I know they have good intentions, but how can adults really help us fix the problem without hearing our side and knowing what we go through? There's a whole nother world we don't get the chance to talk about. One that, despite their best efforts, adults don't know of. One that you won't find on the school-issued posters. In this podcast, we escape the isolation of the White Mountains and tell you what we really go through as youth in today's society. The following stories are true. Be warned, some may be graphic, some may be sad. But one thing that they all have in common is the fact that these stories of teen hardships aren't anything rare. I think I can speak for all of us when I say we crave change. But before we can change, we need a spark.
You're listening to The Spark, a North Country Charter Academy student project. This project is about prevention, recovery, and change. In it, I will cover various topics on and relating to drug use. While this is New Hampshire-based, I know that this is applicable across the country. People everywhere are struggling with these issues, and something needs to be done. Today I'm meeting with Lily, a recent graduate of the North Country Charter Academy, the high school I currently attend. Lily is a former heroin addict who also suffers from a chronic disease, cystic fibrosis. That alone shortens her lifespan, so her story is a curious one. It was a cold Wednesday night in my hometown. Lily and I met at twilight, as the moon was pushing the sun from the sky.
Hi, my name's Lily.
Hi, I'm Lucy. Thank you for doing this interview.
Yes, of course.
This may surprise some, but in my experience, it typically starts around 13.
Started drinking and probably smoking marijuana when I was like 14. I met a guy, and he was a drug addict. I'll get you some heroin or whatever it is that you want, and you can try it, and it'll be fun, like we were going to a party or whatever. You know, I did it one time, and that was it. And I injected it through I have a Metaport in my chest to get my antibiotics now because I can't get any more IVs or anything because I don't really have any veins that aren't all scar tissue. And I used that to inject it instead of a needle. They found me. They had to use Narcan on me twice, and it still didn't really work, so they had to use those paddle thingies to like jump my heart. I went to a rehab in Effingham, New Hampshire, and I spent about 30 to 40 days there.
You can call 603-444-1300 between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. and speak to someone who is in recovery and has been where you are. The New Hampshire Crisis Line is 603-844-4357.
So if you get your tickets out again, we're going to be doing a little bit more raffling. Okay. All right, and the lucky number is 833. 833. There we have it. The next lucky number is 825. 825. And that'd be me. Thank you. Thank you.
I would like to introduce Ruined Generations.
Yeah, I'm digging the Celtics too. All right, we're going to do a couple more raffles, time being. All right. Pick the lucky number. And that number will be 908. 908. Hey. Congratulations. And that next number is 910. 910. There we go. Pink just for you. Yeah.
If you know the song, then sing along.
Moving
Great job, guys. Got some mad drumming skills over there. All right, we're gonna do some more raffling. So, all right. No. That's my prize. That's my. I'm gonna go get that Subway.
Yeah.
Alrighty, and the lucky number is 828. 828. There we go. All right, the next lucky number, 930. 930. Is that yours? Is that one of yours? Hey, is that one of yours? No? Okay. Oliver, there you go. There you go, man. There. I'll take the ticket. Want to do one more? Is that good? All right, do one more. Nine one two. Anyone? Is that one of yours? 3, 2, 1. All right, we're picking. Put that back in there. 929. 929. No? All right, 3. Oh, we got one. We got a winner. Here we go.
Check. Okay. All right, guys. Appreciate everybody coming. We got one more significant speaker. I think everybody's been doing a great job so far. So let's have a round of applause for everybody that's been up so far. All right, so I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about Mr. Novak. So North Country Charter Academy welcomes Brandon Novak to the Youth Summit. His story is one of hope from despair. We all know that Brandon was one of those guys from MTV's Jackass show. He's also a professional skateboarder, actor, author, and former drug addict. At a young age, he traveled the world skateboarding for the Pal Peralta team. He was also making infamous blockbuster movies. He gradually fell into drinking, smoking, pills, cocaine, heroin. It states, "It almost wrapped me in its grip. I was almost unsalvageable." He spent 21 years addicted. He's been in and out of treatment programs. He remembers hearing his mother saying, "God, please cure him, or kill me, because I can't take it anymore." He was determined to get clean. After spending 90 days in a patient facility, he went on sober living house in Bucks County for a year. Today, after 3 years drug-free, he's here to talk to us. I've been fortunate. Yeah, give him up. I've been real fortunate to get to know him and know the guy he is. I've seen him speak around the North Country today. He's been up in Woodsville earlier, and I can honestly say I love the man. He's a great guy, and I want to all give a warm welcome for Brandon Novak.
Statistics state, theoretical evidence dictates that I am to be high or dead right now. The fact that I'm not is A, miraculous, equaling miracle, and B, it defies logic. The reality is the disease of addiction does not discriminate. From Yale or jail, the outhouse or the White House, the results are all the same, and 1 out of 5 people will be affected. Today in the nation, 174 people will die as a direct result of an opioid overdose. Today. That's worse than the AIDS outbreak. That's worse than Vietnam, people. And the sad thing is, all these deaths are preventable. I travel all over the nation and the world for that matter, and I speak all over. I work in the drug and alcohol treatment field, and the common question always presented to me is, what's the answer? What's the answer? What do we do? What do we do? If I had the answer to that question, I would bottle it up, I'd sell it, I'd be a billionaire 1 billion times over. Unfortunately, there is no answer, and right now where we're at the stage in this game is harm reduction and trial and error. I'm a big fan of doing something more than just talking. I'm a big fan of doing something, and if something doesn't work, then we learn from that something and we do something else. In this thing of mine called recovery, sobriety, what have you, there's no margin for error, yet it is impossible to do perfect. I come from better. I know better. I wasn't the guy that walked in class 20 minutes late in fear that everyone was staring at me. I was the guy that walked in class 20 minutes late thinking that everyone was waiting for me. This is my story. I can't tell your story. I can tell you my story. And I'm very upfront with my story. I'm very graphic with my story because I've seen me forget where I come from. And I always return. You're looking at a guy right now that was an IV heroin and cocaine user for 20 years straight. I drank, smoked, sniffed, ate for a grand total of 25 years. I've been in 13 inpatient treatment centers. I've lost count of outpatients and detoxes. I've been medevac to 4 different hospitals from 4 different states. You'll hear further along in my story that my mother had bought me a plot. People had taken life insurance policies out on me. And I woke up from being on life support for 7 days. Which takes me back to the beginning where I started a few minutes ago. Statistics state, theoretical evidence dictates that I'm to be high or dead right now. But the reality is I suffer from a disease called alcoholism, not alcoholism. I can't stay sober on yesterday's sobriety, so there's a few simple things I do each day to maintain my sobriety, and my sobriety has a shelf life of 24 hours. Coming back to that whole, this thing doesn't discriminate, Yale or jail, outhouse or the White House, the results are all the same. My mother just retired after 53 years of gainful employment at Mercy Hospital as a nuclear physicist on the board of Mercy Hospital. My brother, today, as we speak, currently resides in the White House as a practicing attorney, practicing pensions and benefits. My father never held a job a day in his life. He taught me one thing, if and when I go to prison, how to conduct myself. I actually live with that after-school special, that cautionary tale as I stand up here telling you. I hated that man, and I hated drugs and alcohol even more because I saw what it made him do to me, to my mother, to my brother, to my sister, and no one deserved that. I actually excelled at everything I did in my life because I was not going to become that man. I want you to know that in 5th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 12th grade, I didn't put my hand up and say, you know what, teacher? When I grow up, I want to be a homeless heroin addict on the corner of Eastern Avenue and Patterson Park and sell him in Baltimore City, selling my body for $40 to anybody that will buy. That was not my intentions. That was not my goals. I had dreams. I had aspirations. I didn't lack options. I didn't lack choices. You'll hear in my story I was a very, very successful individual. In theory and on paper, a very successful individual had did things in life that people equate to success or happiness and that some even dream of doing. In reality, I walked into my 13th treatment center at the age of 35. My worldly possessions, meaning everything I owned in my world, consisted of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant that fit into a bag that doubles as a pillow, and 4 cigarette butts that I dug out of a receptacle. Because I suffer from a disease that when I forget where I come from and I say, hey, maybe I could have a glass of wine because, hey, actually, in 2 more days I'll be celebrating 3 years of continuous sobriety, so I've been sober long enough now. Hey, actually, homeless was a big part of my story, but I settle on a new home that I just bought the 1st of this month. Hey, actually, I work in the drug treatment field, so I can make 1 phone call and get into any treatment. Hey, actually, I have insurance right now, so maybe I could have 1 glass of wine and it'll turn out different than the last 25 years it played out for me. I don't have a disease that allows me to say, hey, not right now. That's when I forget where I come from. That's where I go. So at the age of 7, my mother presented to me my first skateboard. And that night when she put me to bed, she said, Brandon, what do you want me to do with the skateboard? I said, I want it in bed with me. She said, why? I said, because if I die, I want it to come with me. It was like God had came down and handed me the Holy Grail in the form of a skateboard. You might be the best ping pong player in the world, but God might not see fit to put a paddle in your hand. I knew I was going to be a professional skateboarder. I ate it, I breathed it, I slept it, I dreamt it. At 15, I'm designing my pro model for Pal Peralta. I'm touring the world with Tony Hawk. I have a private tutor that flies with me. At the age of 14, I'm the first skateboarder ever in the world to be endorsed by Gatorade. They fly me out to Chicago to the Quaker Oats building where they make Gatorade at the time. They put me on 1 treadmill. They put Michael Jordan on another treadmill right next to me. They put these wires and these tubes down my nose and down my throat, and they give us each Gatorade to see the effects that it has on different sports players. Somewhere in between that time, I got caught up with drugs and alcohol. And I can't tell you the time, date, place, or location which defines me of being an addict or an alcoholic. And the reality is, if I could tell you that, it doesn't much matter anyways, because I can't go back and turn the hands of time. So I'm not even going to get into that whole aspect. But I'm on one of my first tours, and I'm with another professional skateboarder by the name of Mike Vallely. And on this tour, he catches me with a bunch of drugs. And he says, Brandon, get rid of the drugs or get off the tour. I throw the drugs down the sewer. We finish the demo that we're doing. I meet a girl at the demo. I have her drive me back to the sewer. I fish the drugs back out of the sewer. Long story short, Mike Vallely catches me with these drugs, and he kicks me off the tour. I'm now at home. I get a phone call from my mentor, a fellow by the name of Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk says to me, Brandon, we have 1 or 2 options we could do with you. We could put you into treatment. You can save your life. You can continue to be a professional skateboarder, or you could quit the team. I didn't have a breath of fresh air in my lungs when I said I quit, because I'm the kind of alcoholic that I tend to shy away from conversations that require the words honest, reliable, or dependable. Because you'll hear in my story anything, and I mean anything between me and that next bag, bottle, or pill must and will go. And it's not personal, it's just business in the game that I play called addiction. But see, my delusional alcoholic mind, the one that's so powerful, it makes me believe the unbelievable. It's so powerful that it lies to me in my own voice, which makes it sound that much more convincing. It tells me this: the skateboarding world needs me. It cannot go on without me. I am an asset. In reality, the skateboarding world does not need me. It does not need me. It goes on quite fine without me, and I'm a liability. Unfortunately, I'm the last person to realize that, because, see, I have this job. And this job is very tiresome, and it puts me in a lot of places and positions that I don't like to be in. And that job consists of knowing everything. So when you tell me what I need to do, I tell you why you need to F off, because I know. So now all of a sudden, tours aren't being booked, flights aren't being scheduled, video parts aren't being produced. Why? Because those things require me to be honest, reliable, or dependable. And I have a disease that says, not right now. You don't have the privilege to go film a video part because I'm calling and you answer. So now I'm home. Mind you, I got my first skateboard at 7. I was designing my pro model at 15. 16, I'm touring the world with Tony Hawk. Now I'm presented with this ultimatum from Tony Hawk, and a breath of fresh air takes me to say, no, I'm done. Because I have a disease that says, you're done, boy, tap out. So now I'm home, I've given up my childhood dream, and the thing I ate, I breathed, I slept, I dreamt. Just turned down an ultimatum from Tony Hawk to go to rehab to save my life, and now about a month into being home, my mother and my girlfriend come to me one day. They said, Brandon, we have a great idea for you. I said, what's that? They said, we want you to go to treatment. I thought about it for a second, and I said, that's a phenomenal idea. A, I have the time. B, I'm going to report to said treatment center, and I'm going to report back to my mother and my girlfriend why I'm not you nut jobs, nor will I ever be. Overreaction at best. You caught me at a bad time on a bad way in a bad day. 17 years old, Baltimore City. My mother checks me into the first treatment center. I go in there with a closed mind and a closed heart because I'm not you people. I'm proving a point why I'm not you people. It's around 10:30 at night. They put me in this big cafeteria with this interrogation style lighting shining on me, very similar to this. Cafeteria is completely empty, and out of nowhere, an older black gentleman walks up to me. He nor I had no idea the significance of this conversation would ever have on my life. And he walks up to me, he said, white boy, what are you doing here? I said, heroin. He said, how old are you? I said, 17. He said, do yourself a favor and don't turn 18 in a place like this. And as quick as he came, he left. Mind you, closed mind and closed heart, comparing out. I'll never be you people. Proving a point to my mom and my girl why I'm not you people. You know what I could tell you about that older gentleman? I could tell you where the 4 teeth were placed in his mouth because at the time I had all mine. I could tell you that he's black, I'm white. He's 70 to 75, I'm 17. He smokes crack. My delusional alcoholic mind said I successfully do heroin. He is homeless. I live with my mother and my girlfriend. God bless that man. I'm so happy he found the answer to his problem. You know what I can't tell you about that treatment center? I can't tell you my therapist's name. I can't tell you about the relapse prevention packet they're shoving down my throat. The healthy or unhealthy boundaries they're trying to instill in me, because if I could tell you those things, that might mean that I can relate to being one of you people, and I want no part. I leave that treatment center, disease untreated, no defense against me and that first drink or drug. That gentleman was right. I didn't turn 18 in a place like that. But you know what? I turned 19, 20, 23, 24, 25, 26, 29, 30, 31, 33, 34, 35 in a jail or a treatment center. And every year, I'd sit on whatever bunk, of whatever cell, of whatever prison I happened to be in, or whatever bed, of whatever treatment center I happened to be in, and think back to that older gentleman and said, maybe if me, myself, Brandon Novak, would have listened to him with an open heart and an open mind, I would not continuously find myself in this situation year after year after year after year, meaning that it was fully self-induced. I had now created or painted this picture for which I live in. Now, see, at this point, I'm in and out of treatment centers. I'm in and out of treatment centers, and I go to these treatment centers, and I see that it works for you people. 2 years on the 21st, fucking miracle. Congratulations. I see that it works for these people, but it cannot work for me. You haven't seen what I've seen. You haven't suffered what I've suffered. I'm so internally unique. You don't get what I get. You didn't watch your father slit your mother's throat at the age of 7. At the age of 8, your father didn't take you to the strip joint. When he was in the back conducting business, he didn't sit you at the bar. And when the pretty dancing girls would pour shots of ginger ale and Coca-Cola, I would do them. They would applaud. My father would give me that look of approval. You people didn't end up in movies that broke box office records, and those movies afforded me the opportunity to break a lot of bones. Therefore, when I was rushed to the emergency room, they'd say, hey, this is the guy from those movies. He can't be a junkie, and they're very generous with the script pad. I'm so internally unique that you just can't help me. And see, I was always really confused throughout my life, and I believed wholeheartedly that social acceptability equals personal recovery. But I was so confused because what I know now that I didn't know then is I was trying to fill this internal void with an external solution. So as long as the woman was pretty enough, the bank account was high enough, the home was big enough, the car was new enough, and you told me those things, that must mean that I'm doing okay. So now I decide I gotta build the outside up to make the inside somewhat correlate along the way. So now I trip and I fall into these movies, Jackass, and these TV shows, Viva La Bam, and I'm traveling the world all over. But I keep going to these meetings, and you people tell me that my life is unmanageable, and I believe that my life is unmanageable. But see, I suffer from this disease, which this is not debatable. You can look it up in any form you want. This is an absolute fact. If you're diagnosed as an addict or an alcoholic, that disease left untreated equals death. You die. Have at it. Look it up. But as far as I'm aware of, it's the only fatal disease from which I possess that tells me I don't have a disease on a daily basis. Furthermore, it even lies to me in my own voice, what makes it that much more believable. Diagnosed me with HIV, I'm rushing to the hospital to get medication. I don't want to die. Fatal disease. Diagnosed me with cancer, I'm rushing to the hospital to get chemo. I don't want to die. Fatal disease. Diagnosed me as an addict or an alcoholic. I need a glass of wine or a bag of heroin to figure out what's wrong with you for diagnosing me with said disease. Just as fatal as the first two diseases, but left to my own devices, I'll believe that voice in my head that talks to me in my own voice. And I'll put this microphone down and I'll go to the nearest house and get some heroin. And it's here in this town. I've seen the house. I would know exactly where to go. Someone pointed it out to me. I go to these meetings. You tell me my life is unmanageable. I believe that my life is unmanageable. But then I do an appearance at a nightclub. And they say, Mr. Novak, what would you like in your green room? And I'd say some heroin, some cocaine, some Xanax, and some wine. They would say, no problem. They would get me those substances. I would take pictures. I would sign autographs. At the end of the night, I get a check for $10,000. It is now my job to get high. You tell me my life's unmanageable. I believe my life is unmanageable. My bank account seems pretty manageable. I have that disease that lies to me in my own voice. Now, I don't know what to believe. Up from down, hot from cold, right from left. I'm so delusional. Once again, that delusional alcoholic mind tells me the jackass world needs me. It cannot go on without me. I am an asset. In reality, it did not need me. It went on quite fine without me, and I'm a liability. Unfortunately, I'm the last person to know that because I sat in these rooms and I told you I know everything. Because now, see, just like the skateboarding world with the jackass world, they say, if we book him the flight, will he make the flight? Let's say we book him the flight and he makes the flight. What condition will he be in when he gets here? Let's say we book him the flight. He makes the flight. Is the same thing that's going to happen as it did last time. We have to kick the bathroom door down at Paramount Studios and find him dead on the ground with a needle in his arm. It's not a good look for the work world. How am I here? Mother nuclear physicist, brother attorney in the White House, lived with the cautionary tale, lived with that after school special, hated him, hated drugs and alcohol even more because I saw what it made him do to me, to my mother, to my brother, to my sister. Excelled at everything I did because I was not going to become that man. First skateboarder endorsed by Gatorade, traveling the world with Tony Hawk. Now I've been in movies that break box office records. Now I've been a millionaire 3 times over between the ages of 23, 24. On the flip side of that coin, I've been in 9 inpatient treatment centers. My mother's bought me a plot 8 years ago on Mother's Day. That's how she spent her Mother's Day. People have taken life insurance policies out on me. Everything I tell you is the truth. You can see it on the internet. You can read it in my books. You can see it in the tabloids. I stumbled across this interview that my mother did on the internet one day with these people about me. And she said, I used to pray not to get that phone call. I used to pray not to get that phone call. To, at the end, praying to God for that phone call. Just so she could have a peace of mind. Now I'm the kind of alcoholic that I want to kill myself on a daily basis, but the hit is I don't want to hurt myself in the process. I'm horrible at suicide because I keep waking up. I'm at a point in life, I'm so low that the curb looks like a skyscraper. How did I get here? I didn't put my hand up in 5th grade and say, teacher, you know what? When I grow up, I want to be a homeless heroin addict on the corner of Eastern Avenue and Patterson Park selling my ass for $40 to anybody that has $40. Anybody that has 40, I'm ready. Let's go. It's not my plans. That was not my intentions. So now I come up with a foolproof plan of how I'm going to beat my addiction because I keep going to these treatment centers. I see it working for you, Miss 2 years on the 21st, but it's not going to work for me. So I'm not going to go back to a treatment. So I've decided, I come up with a foolproof plan, strap me up to a polygraph, I will pass with flying colors. I'll have every police officer from here to California pat me on the back saying, boy, we wish everybody was as honest as you. I'm going to move to Helsinki, Finland. It's literally across the world. I can go there, I can regroup, I can rebrand, I can reassess, I can reevaluate, I can redo life. And I'm going to do it. I'll bet my mother on it right now. If I'm lying, may she die where she stands. That's how much I believe it. That delusional mind that I suffer from that lies to me, my own voice, that makes me believe the unbelievable. I get on a plane, I go right to Helsinki, Finland. I get off the plane. Mind you, my mother told me from a young age, show me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. What's transcended into social acceptability equal personal recovery. What's transcended in filling this internal void with an external solution. There's a pattern there. So I get off this plane, I go to this 5-star ritzy hotel. I go right to the lobby bar. There's all these businessmen in these expensive suits having business meetings in all these different languages. And I go right to the bar and I order a bottle of wine. And I'm sitting at the bar, I'm drinking my bottle of wine. I meet a fellow at the bar, he gives me a phone number. I'm having bags and bags of heroin delivered to me. I just bet my mother on this bet. It was not going to be this way. I didn't want to do this. I go in the bathroom, I'm doing what I do, and I call my sponsor, Lex, and I said, Lex, how did this happen? He said, do you have a minute, Mr. Know-It-All? Hey, genius, can you spare me a second? I said, yeah, Lex. He said, I guess you skimmed over the part where we talked about geographical change does not equal recovery. You can't shake your shadow. You take you with you everywhere you go. They talk about what triggers are. My triggers are when my eyelids open. I'll justify why any time, place, feeling, woman, position makes sense to shoot dope. I'll shoot dope with this microphone until I get tired of carrying it. And when I get tired of carrying it, it doesn't matter because my disease says you don't have the privilege to put it down. How am I here? How am I here? He said, do you have another second, genius? I said, yeah. He said, the drinking and the drugging is not your problem. What do you mean it's not my problem? I've literally just moved across the world. I've now given it 2 ex-fiancés. I've given it multiple homes. I've given it multiple careers. I've given it my family. I've given it my sexuality. It asks, I give. What do you mean it's not my problem? It's not your problem, Slick. It's your solution. Your problem is your thinking, your attitude, and your behavior. Because I really believed if I physically just sat it down, I would be better. So I get on a plane and I come back. And now I got to build the outside up because the jackass world is a long wash just like the skateboarding world. So I decided I'm going to write a book. Right? I'm going to write a book. I'm no fool by any means. I'm nobody's fool. Come from a pretty good line of heritage of people. I'm going to write a book. The book gets published, but keep in mind the book gets published after I go to prison. Right? I have no GED. I have no high school diploma. I get it when I'm in prison. And the only reason why I take it and I get it in there is because A, I have the time, and B, if you pass the GED in the joint, you get a pizza party that's supplied by Domino's. So I don't know about anybody in here, but for me, that's a no-brainer. But here's the hit. I aced that test like a Harvard graduate. I did not miss one question. Literally. Looking back now, I can see why I did so well. It's because it was my idea. The reason why I did so bad in so many years, in so many treatment centers, so many doctor's offices, so many psychiatrist offices, so many AA, NA, 12-step programs, is because it wasn't my idea, because I have that job of knowing everything. When you tell me what I need to do, I tell you why you need to F off. If it was my idea, I would have excelled at a rapid pace and been a billboard for any treatment center in the world. So prior to getting my GED, I write this book. The book gets published. I'm now a published author. Take it a step further, I'm a published author who's written an autobiography addiction memoir. I'm a published author who's written a book on addiction. Take it a step further, I'm a published author who's written a book on addiction, and that book becomes a New York Times top 10 seller. I'm now receiving hundreds of thousands of pieces of mail from all over the world in all these different languages of people like you, Mom, saying, I read your book. I understand when my son picks the needle over coming to have dinner with me on the weekends. It's not that I was a bad mom. It's that he suffers with the disease of addiction. It's like you missed 2 years on the 21st. I read your book. I didn't want my story to get as bad as yours. I'm coming up on 2 years on the 21st. My delusional alcoholic mind said I just wrote the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, or the basic text of Narcotics Anonymous. And for those of you that don't understand what I just said, let me break it down for you. That book that I'm speaking about is the equivalent to the Bible for churchgoers. It is literally our way of living guide. I'm saving people's lives, but I can't keep a needle out of my arm. That night, my book's being released in Times Square in New York City, my first book. I have my literary agent there, I have my publishers there, I have my manager there. All these very well-to-do people in the scholarly world are here for this event that night. And I don't have any heroin that night. What I didn't know then that I understand now is it would not be a good look me sitting at a Barnes & Noble doing an autograph signing of a book on addiction that I wrote while nodding out being on heroin. But my people wouldn't give me any money. And I have a buddy of mine with me that's from Baltimore, and he doesn't feel good either. See, I have that disease that I told you about, that when it calls, I answer by any and all means necessary, and it's not personal, it's just business. I don't have a disease for which I can say, hey, not right now, bud, I have to work for 2 hours. If only. If only. All of a sudden, they wheel my books in these boxes on this dolly, and me and my buddy, we take one look at each other. We don't say a word, but we have a complete conversation, that language of the heart untreated. I stand up, he stands up. In uniform precision, we walk over. I grab 2 boxes, he grabs 2 boxes. I run right out of the bookstore. I go right to the train station. Me and him hop on a train. We go back to Baltimore. I autograph, sign, and sell the 4 boxes of books to 2 different stores to get money to go buy more heroin. I'm now stealing my own autobiography addiction memoir books from the book signing release party to take back to Baltimore to sell to buy more heroin. How am I here? Mother, nuclear physicist. Brother, attorney in the White House. Father died as a direct result. I was never going to do it. First skateboarder to be endorsed by Gatorade, hanging out with Michael Jordan, traveling the world with Tony Hawk, designing my first pro model at 15, end up in movies that break box office records, millionaire 3 times over between the ages of 23, 24. On the flip side of that coin, I've been in 12 inpatient treatment centers. I've lost count of outpatients and detoxes. I've been medevaced to 4 different hospitals in 4 different states from 4 different overdoses. My mother's bought me a plot. People have taken life insurance policies out on me, and I'm about to wake up after being on life support for 7 days. How am I here? I got here because I sat there with a closed mind and a closed heart, because I should have listened to that first man in that first treatment center at 17 and said, do yourself a favor, boy, and don't turn 18 in a place like this. I compared out. That could never be. Huh. Now it is. Now it is. So I'm back in Philadelphia, and my mother still lives in Baltimore today, currently resides there. And I don't know if anybody in this room remembers about almost a little over 3 years ago when the police killed that young black man, Freddie Gray, in Baltimore City. Baltimore City was like the movie The Purge at the time. She lives about 15 blocks from where that incident had occurred. They were robbing, they were looting, they were shooting, they were stealing, they were burning blocks down, they were burning police cars down. There was a 10 o'clock curfew. There was a National Guard on each corner with a machine gun and a tank. No one was to be on the streets. And she called me. This woman that I love more than anything in this world, this woman that has never said no to me, calls me. And she said, Brandon, I'm terrified. Can you come take care of me? My intentions were to get on a train, get down there, and be at her beck and call. That was my intentions. My disease called and said, no, boy, you got different plans. My actions looked like I got on a train, I went back, I went up into her bedroom, I left that bedroom once a day for 3 months. I put her out of that bedroom. She had now taken to sleeping on the couch because she was in fear that I was going to burn her house down while being high on heroin, smoking a cigarette. The abnormal had became the normal. I'm living on this animalistic level. Her best next decision was, if the house burns, I can be on the first floor and make it out alive. In theory and on paper, a very successful individual have done things in life that people equate to success or happiness, that some even dream of doing. In reality, I'm a 35-year-old homeless heroin addict living in my mother's bedroom. I leave that house once a day to go buy $180 worth of heroin and cocaine. Every morning at 4:30 a.m., my eyes open religiously. I don't have a clock. I don't have an alarm clock that says wake up. My disease says get up. 4:30, not a minute before, not a minute after. 4:30, every morning my eyes open. And I gently sneak down the stairs. And I know exactly what step to step on, because God forbid one of those steps make a creak and she wakes up and says, Brandon, can you make me something to eat? I fucking can't. Not right now, Mom. This isn't personal. It's business. And I get to the bottom of the stairs and I would get on all four. And I would army crawl very quietly over to her bed, a.k.a. the sofa in the living room. This hand would grab her purse. This hand would grab the bell attached to her purse, and I would gently slide it to me, because God forbid that bell made a noise. And she said, Brandon, what are you doing in my purse? Don't ask. I would get the $180 out, and I would leave. And one day I came back, and I went to put my key in the lock, and the key didn't work, and I knock on the door, and my hotshot attorney brother from the White House had drove down from D.C., and my mother was literally terrified. She would not walk up those stairs, so she had no idea what was going on up there. My brother took her up to that bedroom that I left once a day for 3 months, and that bedroom looked like a murder scene. There was blood on the ceilings, there was blood on the walls, needles, cookers, bags, you name it, it's there. And she answers the door with my brother. My brother was there to act as muscle, because he knows that my mother never says no to me. And my mother looks at me with tears running down her eyes, and she said, Brandon, I refuse to love you to death. You can no longer stay here. With that, a police officer comes around the corner with a restraining order. First skateboard endorsed by Gatorade, hanging out with Michael Jordan, traveling the world with Tony Hawk, been in a movie that breaks box office records, millionaire 3 times over, New York Times top 10 selling author that's written a book on addiction. The flip side of that coin looks like this. 12 treatment centers, about to walk into my 13th. I've just woken up from being on life support for 7 days. My mother's bought me a plot. People have taken life insurance policies out on me. My mother went to church one day, and Father Mike sees her sitting in the pew crying. Father Mike says, Miss Pat, what's wrong? Miss Pat says, Father Mike, it's Brandon. He's never been worse. I've sold 3 homes to financially pay for him to go to treatment. I've depleted multiple savings accounts. You name it, I've done it. There's nothing left I can do to help him. So I've simply went to God with one prayer. Father Mike says, Miss Pat, what's that prayer? Miss Pat says, Father Mike, it's simple. The prayer consists of, God, please cure him, or kill me because I can't take it anymore. Father Mike, for the first time in his life, looked at my mother and he screamed at her. He said, how dare you go to God with a plan like that about your son? God has a plan for your son. You don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. And Brandon doesn't know what it is. The reality is, thank God I didn't know what that plan was because I would have messed it up. In theory and on paper, very successful individual. In reality, I'm a 35-year-old man whose worldly possessions fit into a bag. 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant, 4 cigarette butts that I dug out of a receptacle, a restraining order, a needle, and a spoon is all I own at 35 years old. I didn't sit in that chair and put my hand up and say, you know what, I want to be a homeless heroin addict. Didn't lack choices or options. Whole bunch of more series of events have taken place, but this isn't the kind of audience that I can share the specifics of what really happened, but I promise you it's nothing shy of a nightmare. I ended up going to the BWI airport. My intention was to board a flight. This woman was buying me a flight to fly out to Fort Lauderdale, but some incidents had occurred prior to me getting to the airport, and my clothes were literally ripped off me. They're barely hanging on by a shred. Barely. Front and back completely exposed. And when I get to the airport, I get up to the counter, and the woman takes one look at me. She says, Mr. Novak, are you under the influence of anything? I say, no. She says, I believe you are. You will not fly for 72 hours. 2 things I've learned in my career is I will never win an argument with a judge or a TSA airport security agent. What they say goes. My delusional alcoholic mind that lies to me on my own voice tells me this. This woman knows who I am. Her son or daughter has an issue with drugs or alcohol. She's blaming her kid's disease on me. How dare her piss on my parade? In reality, anybody dressed the way I was dressed would not be allowed to walk outside this exit door, much less board a plane to anywhere. Something very imperative in that moment happened. I didn't want to get on that flight. I felt like I just shot 10 kilos of cocaine. My heart was beating 1,000,000 miles an hour. I knew if I got on that flight, it was going to end real bad, but I didn't have the privilege to not get on that flight because my disease says get on. God dressed up in the form of a TSA airport security agent and did for me what I could not do for myself. And I got out of line and I called that same sponsor that I called when I was in Finland. I said, Lex, I'm stranded at the airport. I want to kill myself. This is May 25th, 2015. Like I told you, in 2 days, God willing, I'll have 3 years of continuous sobriety. He said, no, you're going to get on a train. You're going to come back to Philly. You people from the first treatment center that I said, God bless it, you found your answer. I want no part, overreaction at best, bad time, bad way, bad day. Now you nut jobs are the only people that will answer my calls. Make matters worse, you don't even give me $10. He said, no, we're going to leave our cookouts. We're going to leave our families. We're going to leave our kids. We're going to come help you out. You being the person that's been deemed unhelpable or unfixable. Because you people loved me when I didn't love myself. You people cared for me when I didn't care for myself. You people prayed for me when I didn't pray for myself. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You showed up and you picked me up. You took me to see my probation officer. I believe the only reason why she showed me mercy is because of my exterior dress, because I still had the same clothes on, because I don't have new clothes to change into. She said, get up to treatment. I go to the same treatment center I've been to four specific times prior. And how it looked the 4 previous times is I would walk in, same intake coordinator, same chair, and she'd say, okay, Mr. Novak, your insurance covers 90 days. I'd say, in theory, 90 days sounds great, but in reality, I'm more of like a 45-day kind of fellow. This place to see, this woman to hang out with, this job to fulfill, and she would always laugh at me and say, sweetheart, it doesn't matter. Anything and everything that you put in front of your recovery does not or will not matter because you will lose it. And I said, well, I guess you haven't seen my resume. New York Times seller, written a book on addiction, movie star, broke box office records, millionaire, skateboarding, blah, blah, blah. What happens is ignorance is bliss. When you don't know, you're not to be held accountable. But now I know because I sat in this chair with her 4 previous times, and I'm to be held accountable. The difference is, right now, the position that I walk in when I sit in the same chair with the same woman, I've now been demoralized in just such a fashion from drugs and alcohol. I've been beaten into a state of reasonableness that now she has my attention. When she gives me the same old offer, I can't even come back with a counter offer, because if I say no, that entailed an explanation. I'm literally beaten speechless by my disease. All I could do is shake my head yes. She says, sweetheart, you're in no condition to do your intake. Get up to detox. I'll see you in 4 days. I get up to detox. The same 19-year-old tech who always works is in detox. He said, Mr. Novak, you're back. And I said, aren't you a genius? You don't miss a beat, do you, Slick? He said, Mr. Novak, your clothes are not rehab-oriented. You need some underwear. You need some sweatpants. You need some slides. Mind you, I told you, they're literally ripped off, front, back, completely exposed. Don't own underwear because my disease says you don't have the privilege. I never prayed for such simple articles of clothing, but the reality is I don't own underwear. I don't own sweatpants. I have a needle, I have a spoon, I have a restraining order, I have 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant, and 4 cigarette butts that I dug out of a receptacle. That's all my disease says I can have. How did I get here? He said, come downstairs to the donations box of this Catholic Charities rehab, and I'm going to see if I can find you a pair of 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 10th hand pair of underwear. I go down with the kid. He's thumbing through the boxes, and I'm praying to God he finds a pair of 10th hand used underwear. You heard my resume. How am I here? I'm here because I knew everything, and I sat there with a closed mind and a closed heart, and I compared out because that could never be me. What happened in the basement of that Catholic Charities rehab is God showed up yet again. And what I mean by God is gift of desperation. I've been demoralized in just such a fashion from drugs and alcohol. I've been beaten into a state of reasonableness that the kid can't find a pair of 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 10th hand pair of underwear. But what he does find is a pair of size 40 women's sweatpants with no drawstring, a woman's tank top, and a pair of size 13 Jesus sandals. I don't know how alert or attentive anybody in this audience is, but I'm not a woman and I don't wear a size 13. That gift of desperation, that God moment that appeared in that Catholic Charities rehab as a 35-year-old homeless heroin addict that owned 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant, fits into a bag, doubles as a pillow, 4 cigarette butts I dug out of a receptacle, a restraining order, a needle, and a spoon, has now met God for the umpteenth time in this basement. And when that gift of desperation showed up, I experienced a feeling of willingness unlike I've ever experienced. I get upstairs, I get that Baltimore City smell off me, I get a shower, I put these women's clothing on. I successfully complete that 90-day treatment center. In that 90-day treatment center, they taught me that my mentality will create the reality for which I live in. They taught me if you change your perception, you change your world. I successfully completed that 90-day treatment center. From there, I went to a sober living house for 1 year. I have been on parole and probation from 16 years old to 35, never a free day in between. 1 year into my process of sobriety, I signed my release papers. I'm literally a free man that can go anywhere with anyone, anytime that I please. I decided I wanted to get my 2-year medallion. I flew out to Paris to go to a meeting to get my coin. I no longer live in that self-induced prison of a 4-block radius that cost me $10 to get out of on a daily basis. My mother, the same mother that served me with a restraining order, the same mother that bought me a plot, the same mother that went to God and said, God, please cure him, or kill me, called me 9 months into my process. She said, Brandon, I hate when you come to visit. I said, why? She said, because I get so sad when you leave. That book deal that I told you about that I got in trouble for stealing my own books to take to go back to Baltimore to sell to buy more heroin, that was a 3-book deal I had. When I stole my own books, they ripped that contract up on sight. 8 months ago, my second book came out. I have 3 more books to follow. I have the first ever in the world addiction graphic novel coming out June 1st. I have I have a documentary that's going to the Sundance and the Cannes Film Festival. This is not me bragging or boasting. This is me simply saying, if you want what I have, do what I do and you can get what I got. This is me simply saying, if you sit there with an open mind and an open heart, you don't have to end up where I went. Sobriety has given me everything that drugs and alcohol promised me. Furthermore, God willing, in 2 days I will celebrate 3 years of continuous sobriety. What I learned is your history does not have to dictate your future. As long as you're breathing, it's never too late. The disease of addiction is not a death sentence. I'm going to close with this story. There's a father that works from home. He's completely swamped with paperwork, and he's trying to figure out a way by 1 or 2 days, and he has his kid at home, and his kid keeps banging on the knee, Dad, take me out to play, take me out to play. Father's trying to figure out a way to buy 1 or 2 days. Father looks on his desk in his office, and he sees a big picture of a puzzle of the world map. The father says to himself, I got it. Completely dismantles the picture of the puzzle of the world map, and he throws it on the floor. He says, son, when you put the picture of the puzzle of the world map back together, I'll take you out to play. Father leaves the office surely thinking he bought 1 or 2 days. 20 minutes later, the son comes back, and he bangs the dad on the knee. He says, Dad, I did it. The father says to himself, impossible. He walks back into his office as sure as the day is long. The picture of the puzzle, the world maps put back together. He said, son, how'd you do it? Son said, Dad, it was simple. On the back of the picture of the puzzle, the world map was a picture of a man. I put the man back together. The world fell back in place. Together we stand, divided I die. My name is Brandon. Thank you for listening.
If anybody has any questions, Brandon, you want to stay up for a few? If Joe's going to come around with a microphone. If anybody has any questions for Brandon, just raise your hand. I will wrap it up and get out of here a little early, but feel free to shout out anything.
What was going through your mind when you were like detoxing? Because I went through like a lot when I was
detoxing, I couldn't even pronounce my name.
Yeah.
So like there wasn't much of anything going through my mind. But what happened was, this is the first time in my 13 inpatient treatment center attempts that I walked in without a plan. Mm-hmm. Because what I've learned in sobriety is expectations are nothing but unfulfilled resentments. So the moment you don't think as I think you should think, say as I think you should say, or do as I think you should do, I'm immediately furious. So what I'm trying to say is lack of plans has produced the best of plans in my situation here.
Yeah, because also with my mother, I put her through hell. I've been in 4 different places for help, and I've been in the same one for about 2 years. So,
God bless you. Thank you for helping me stay sober.
I'm not gonna stand up, but I just wanted to say that it's people like you that come to places like this and have conversations with people, and like sometimes it's even just listening to somebody's story. It helps so much. Like I saw you yesterday and today, and like almost everything that you said is like drilled into my head, and like I'm gonna remember it probably forever. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Cool. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you, Brandon.
I want to thank everyone for coming tonight to the second annual North Country Youth Summit. We have a few more raffles tonight. 2 more.
One's a big one for, here you go, man.
All right, and the number is 827. There you go. Next number, 829. There we go. Are we raffling those off too?
Yeah. So let me, we also have 2 copies of Brandon's New York Times best-selling book, Dream Seller. So we're going to raffle those off also. These are courtesy of the Haverhill Area Substance Misuse Prevention Coalition.
915. No. 836. 836.
Thanks again for coming tonight. Have a safe travel home, and I hope tonight inspired you in some way. Good night.